Welcome back to Masterminds and Wisdom. Today we're going to be diving into something that might sound a little technical at first.
Yeah.
Scaling laws.
Scaling laws.
But trust me, this is going to blow your mind wide open.
Yeah, it really is fascinating stuff.
We've got a whole stack of books and papers.
Oh, yeah.
Even some historical snippets to try and figure out how things change as they grow.
Right.
Not just in size.
Not just in size.
But in their very nature.
Yeah, how they kind of work fundamentally, how they're structured, all that.
Exactly. And we're talking everything from tiny little organisms to sprawling cities.
Yep.
Even companies.
That's right.
How long they last.
Yeah, their lifespans, how they grow.
Yeah, and one of the books scale throughout this real curveball.
Oh, yeah.
To understand growth,
Oh,
you
yeah?
have to understand death.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, it's not a very cheerful thought,
No, not really.
but it really gets you thinking.
Yeah, for sure.
Death is usually, we think of it as the opposite of growth.
Right.
The end.
Yeah.
But in nature,
Uh-huh.
death is what makes space for new life,
Right.
for
It
adaptation,
starts things move.
for evolution.
That's right. It's a cycle.
So if we take that same logic and apply it to, say, companies,
Kinda.
does that mean that a company dying is actually good
Interesting.
through innovation?
So, like, kind of clearing out the dead wood
Yeah.
makes room for the new.
Yeah.
That's a really cool way to look at it.
Yeah, so that's the kind of thing we're going to be talking about
Yeah.
today.
I love it.
But before we get too far ahead,
Okay.
let's break down this whole scaling laws thing.
All right.
Okay, one of the examples that really caught my eye
Okay.
was about metabolic rate.
Uh-huh.
So apparently elephants are 10,000 times heavier than rats.
Wow, that's a big difference.
But their metabolic rate, which is like the energy they burn just to exist,
Right, just to be alive.
is only 1,000 times greater.
Huh.
How does that even work?
Yeah, that doesn't seem to make sense.
No, it doesn't seem like the math adds up.
Mm.
So that's where this thing called the 3/4 power scaling law comes in.
Oh, boy.
Yeah,
I know.
that sounds complicated.
That's a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah.
But basically, it means that as organisms get bigger,
Okay.
they get way more energy efficient.
So they're like the Priuses of the animal kingdom or something.
Yeah, like every time their size doubles,
Uh,
they get a 25% energy saving.
wow, that's significant.
Yeah.
So like if I was twice my size, I'd only need like 75% of the calories I eat now.
That's the idea.
I could get behind that.
But why is that?
Yeah, what's the secret?
Why are they so efficient?
Yeah.
Well, one theory
Okay.
is that it has to do with how their biological networks are structured.
Okay, so like their circulatory system.
Exactly. Like, think about all the blood vessels
Uh-huh.
that have to reach every single cell in your body.
Yeah, and for a big animal like an elephant, that must be a lot of vessels.
Oh, yeah, a huge network.
But the thing is,
Okay.
these networks
Yeah.
aren't just like scaled up versions of smaller ones.
They're not just bigger, they're different.
Yeah, they've evolved over time
Okay,
to be
yeah.
super efficient.
So, like, nature has found this optimal design
Yeah.
that balances size and energy use.
And you know what?
Yeah.
This whole scaling laws thing,
Yeah.
it's not just some abstract scientific concept.
Okay.
This actually has real-world applications.
Like what?
Like medicine.
Medicine.
Like when doctors are figuring out how much medicine to give you,
Right.
they don't just like, oh, you weigh this much.
Right. It's not just proportional.
You get this much medicine.
Yeah.
They have to take these scaling laws into account
Interesting.
to make sure
Yeah.
that just the right amount is reaching your cells
Without doing any harm.
without like overdosing you.
Right. That makes sense.
It's like a little reminder
Yeah.
that even in something as simple as taking a pill,
Mm-hmm.
there's this whole hidden world of science going on.
It's really cool when you think about it.
Right. And speaking of science, we've been talking a lot about biology.
Yeah.
But one of our sources argues that
Cities.
can actually be seen as superorganisms.
Superorganisms. What do you mean?
Yeah, it sounds crazy, right?
A little bit.
But when you start looking at the similarities
Okay.
between cities and like actual organisms,
Uh-huh.
it starts to kind of make sense.
All right.
So they both have all these specialized systems.
Like transportation and energy and
Yeah.
communication.
They both grow and evolve over time.
Right.
And they're both incredibly complex.
Yeah, that's true.
Like one of our sources even compares a city
Okay.
to an ant colony,
Wow.
which is crazy when you think about it.
Yeah.
You've got this whole network of tunnels and chambers,
Mm-hmm.
this division of labor,
Right. Different types of ants doing different jobs.
constant activity.
Oh, he's busy.
Like it's a little miniature city.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Lots of bustling beneath our feet.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is that
Yeah.
cities, unlike organisms or companies, they seem to be pretty much immortal.
Immortal.
Like they just keep growing and adapting.
So while buildings might get torn down and rebuilt,
Exactly.
the city itself keeps going.
Businesses come and go,
Yeah.
but the city itself just keeps evolving.
It's like a living entity in a way.
Yeah. And some of that has to do with social responsibility,
Okay.
development of infrastructure like
Yeah.
sanitation.
Right, public health.
Yeah.
Those things help.
And the constant influx of new people and ideas.
So cities are good at adapting. They're
Yeah.
resilient.
Makes you wonder, though,
Yeah.
is there a limit to how big a city can get?
That's a good question.
Can they just keep expanding forever?
I don't know. Is there like a maximum city size?
That's something we're going to be digging into a little later.
I'm intrigued.
But before we do that,
Okay.
let's shift gears a little bit
All right.
and talk about companies.
Okay.
Because our sources suggest that unlike cities,
Uh-huh.
companies actually have a lot in common with organisms, especially when it comes to their lifespan.
So you're saying companies are kind of like living things
Yeah,
in a way.
they have a life cycle.
Yeah. They tend to follow a similar growth trajectory.
Okay.
They start small.
Uh-huh.
They have this period of rapid growth.
Right, the startup phase.
Right. Then they kind of mature.
They get big.
Yeah. More established.
And then in a lot of cases,
What happens?
they decline.
Oh, they die off.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And our sources also point out that
Does that?
as companies get bigger,
Yeah.
they can actually become less adaptable,
Less adaptable.
which makes them more vulnerable to like changes in the market
Right.
or new technologies.
So they get stuck in their ways.
Kind of.
They can't keep up.
Like they get so big and bureaucratic
Right.
that it's harder for them to like pivot quickly.
They can't change direction easily.
Yeah, when things start to change.
So are all companies doomed to this cycle
That's the question.
of growth and then decline?
Yeah, is there any way to escape this fate?
Yeah. Can companies live forever?
Well, not necessarily.
Right.
But to understand how they might defy the odds,
Right.
we need to explore the power of innovation.
Innovation.
But before we get into all that,
Okay.
we're going to take a little detour
A detour.
into the world of pop culture.
Pop culture.
Because one of our sources uses Godzilla,
Godzilla. What does Godzilla have to do with this?
of all things,
Okay, I'm really curious now.
to illustrate the limits of scaling.
So you're saying Godzilla couldn't actually exist?
Well, as much as we love the idea
I know, it's so cool.
of a giant monster
Yeah.
stomping through cities,
Crushing buildings.
yeah,
But you're telling me he's not real?
the reality is
Okay.
that a creature like Godzilla
Yeah.
couldn't actually exist
Okay.
based on how scaling works.
Oh, why not?
Well, it all comes down to
Okay.
the scaling of bone strength and weight.
Bone strength.
Yeah. So as an organism gets bigger,
Uh.
its weight increases way faster than its bone strength.
So like an ant can lift many times its own weight,
Exactly.
but an elephant can't?
And if Godzilla were really that massive,
Yeah.
his bones would just crumble under his own weight.
So he'd just collapse.
Pretty much.
That's kind of a bummer.
I know, but it's still fun to think about.
Yeah, for sure.
And thinking about Godzilla in this context, it actually helps us understand the boundaries of biological systems
Okay.
and the properties of materials.
Right, because even though he's fictional,
Yeah,
there's still some real science we can learn from.
exactly.
That's pretty cool.
So I guess what we're saying is
Yeah.
these scaling laws, they're like these invisible forces
Invisible forces.
that are shaping the world around us,
Okay.
from the size of animals
Right.
to the lifespan of companies.
Yeah, I see that.
But is there any way to break free,
To escape these laws?
yeah, from these constraints? That's where innovation comes in.
Innovation.
Our sources argue that innovation is the key to pushing past these limits.
So we can break the rules
Kind of.
by coming up with new ideas.
Exactly. Like think about bridge construction.
Bridges. Okay.
For centuries,
Yeah.
the size of bridges was totally limited
Limited by
the materials they had.
right, wood and stone.
Exactly.
Those can only get you so far.
Yeah, they can only build so big.
Right.
But then
what happened?
steel came along.
Steel.
Concrete.
It's stronger.
Yeah, and new designs.
I do designs.
Like suspension bridges, arches.
Yeah.
And suddenly we could build these massive bridges.
Right. Spanning huge distances.
Yeah, connecting places that people never thought possible.
So innovation changed the game.
Exactly.
It's not just about inventing new things.
Right.
It's about finding better ways to do things.
Yeah, solving problems that seemed impossible.
Right. And that applies to companies too.
Yeah, like if a company can keep innovating, they can adapt to new situations,
Right.
adopt new technology,
Keep up with the times.
and potentially avoid that decline.
So innovation is like the key to survival
Yeah.
in a constantly changing world.
But there's a catch.
Oh, there's a catch.
This constant need for innovation.
Yeah.
It can create this crazy fast pace of life.
Oh, yeah. I feel
like we're all on this treadmill that just keeps speeding up.
New gadgets, new technologies all the time.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up.
It really is.
But before we get too caught up in that whirlwind,
Okay.
let's explore another cool concept.
Another concept.
Related to scaling.
Okay, hit me with it.
Fractals.
Fractals, those are like the trippy patterns
Yeah.
that repeat at different sizes.
Yeah, you see them everywhere in nature.
Yeah, like trees.
Coastlines, even our circulatory system.
Wow, so they're like this hidden code
Right.
connecting things across different scales.
Yeah, like they're telling us
What?
that there's this deeper unity to the universe,
A hidden order.
even in all the chaos.
I like that.
And that brings us to another piece of the puzzle.
Okay, what's that?
Networks.
Networks.
They're like the backbone of all these complex systems,
Right.
whether it's biology, society,
Mhm.
or even technology.
Right.
Like think about your cardiovascular system.
Yeah, the heart pumping blood.
Yeah.
All throughout the body.
Or how plants transport water and nutrients.
From their roots to their leaves,
Yeah,
through their vascular system.
exactly.
And then there's all the human-made networks.
Yeah, like transportation systems,
The internet.
power grids
Right.
that connect us globally.
It's amazing how interconnected everything is.
Yeah, and understanding how these networks work,
Yeah.
how they're so efficient and resilient.
It's crucial for understanding how anything complex can actually thrive.
Yeah, and one of our sources uses this great example.
Oh, yeah. What is it?
Nikola Tesla
Tesla.
and his famous War of the Currents.
Oh, yeah. AC versus DC.
That's right. Tesla's alternating current
Uh-huh.
versus Edison's direct current.
Right. It was a battle of the titans.
A real showdown of innovation.
For sure.
And in the end,
Good one.
Tesla's AC system won out
Yeah.
because it was way more efficient
Crap.
at transmitting electricity.
How long distances?
Yeah, thanks in part to this concept
Okay.
called impedance matching.
Impedance matching.
Yeah, so think of it like water flowing through pipes.
Okay.
If you have a wide pipe
Yeah.
connected to a narrow pipe, you're going to lose a lot of pressure
Okay.
and efficiency.
Right. Like a bottleneck.
Exactly.
Okay.
Impedance matching is all about making sure that the flow of energy
Okay.
is as smooth as possible.
So no bottlenecks.
No bottlenecks.
Oh, right.
So in the case of electricity,
Yeah.
Tesla's AC system,
Uh-huh.
it allowed for this better impedance matching,
Okay.
which meant less energy was wasted.
During transmission.
Yeah.
That's pretty clever.
And this isn't just some obscure electrical engineering thing.
Okay.
This principle of optimization, it applies to all kinds of networks.
Like what?
The circulatory system in your body,
Right.
the global flow of information on the internet.
Huh.
Efficient networks are essential for survival and success.
So it's all about optimization.
Yeah, making things work as smoothly as possible.
I like it.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Scaling laws in biology,
Yeah.
cities as superorganisms,
Mm-hmm.
Godzilla, and the limits of scaling,
Right.
the power of innovation,
Yeah.
the beauty of fractals,
Mm-hmm.
and the essential role of networks.
We've been all over the map.
Yeah, it's like we're piecing together this puzzle,
Puzzle.
getting a glimpse of this hidden order
Yeah.
that underlies the complexity of our world.
I love it.
And we're just getting started.
Really? There's more.
There's so much more to explore,
I can't wait.
especially when it comes to how these scaling laws influence
Oh.
the growth and behavior of cities.
Cities.
Yeah, so stay tuned, because in
yeah.
part 2,
Okay.
we're going to dive even deeper into the fascinating world of urban scaling.
All right. I'm ready. All right. So last time we were talking about how cities are kind of like these immortal superorganisms.
Yeah, they just keep drawing and adapting.
Right. But how do they actually do that?
Yeah, what's their secret sauce?
Well, one of our sources points to this thing called the 15% rule.
15% rule.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds kind of wonky,
A little bit.
but it's actually pretty fascinating.
All right, I'm listening.
So basically, as a city doubles in size,
Uh-huh.
its infrastructure needs only increase by 85%.
Wait, so they don't need to, like, double their roads and pipes and stuff?
No, not at all.
That doesn't seem right.
I know it's kind of counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but think about it this way.
Okay.
You've got things like roads and pipes and power lines.
Yeah.
They don't need to double in capacity
Okay.
just because the population doubles.
So cities become more efficient with their infrastructure.
Exactly. Less waste, more bang for their buck.
Okay. I'm starting to get it.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, there's more.
This 15% rule,
Yeah.
it also applies to socioeconomic outputs.
Socioeconomic outputs. What's that?
Things like wages, GDP innovation.
Okay.
And just like with infrastructure, these outputs don't just double when a city doubles in size.
That's like a double bonus.
We got it.
Cities get more efficient with their stuff.
Yeah.
And their people become more productive.
That's the beauty of cities as complex systems.
Complex systems.
Yeah, they're constantly integrating energy, resources, information.
Okay.
And that leads to these increasing returns to scale.
Increasing returns to scale, so it's like this positive feedback loop.
Exactly. The bigger they get, the better they get.
It's like a snowball effect.
In a way.
But it can't all be good, right?
Well, there are potential downsides.
Like what?
One of our sources talks about this thing called urban overload.
Urban overload. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's that feeling of being overwhelmed by all the stimulation.
The crowds, the noise, the constant activity.
Exactly. It's like sensory overload on a citywide scale.
Yeah. Yeah. I've definitely felt that.
So finding that balance between urban excitement and personal well-being.
Right.
That's a key challenge for city dwellers.
So it's about creating cities that are not just efficient,
yeah,
but also livable and enjoyable.
Exactly. Cities that cater to our human needs.
Okay, so we've talked about efficiency and the potential downsides of density.
Right.
But what about the social aspect of cities?
That's a huge part of the equation.
Yeah, and one of our sources brought up this concept called Dunbar's number.
Dunbar's number?
Yeah, it's that idea that there's a limit to how many meaningful relationships we can maintain.
Something like 150 people.
Yeah, which seems kind of crazy when you think about a city with millions of people.
Right, you'd think we'd be drowning in relationships.
But Dunbar's number isn't about, like, casual acquaintances.
Right.
It's about those deeper connections.
The people you really know and trust.
Yeah, the ones you can rely on.
Exactly.
So how does that play out in a city with millions of inhabitants?
Well, even in a huge city. Yeah.
We naturally form smaller groups and communities.
So it's like these little social ecosystems.
Exactly.
Within the larger urban environment.
And these smaller networks,
yeah,
they're often where a lot of the good stuff happens.
Like what?
Collaboration, innovation trust.
So these little groups are actually driving a lot of the city's success.
In a way, yeah, they're like the building blocks of the superorganism.
Okay, that makes sense.
And speaking of superorganisms, cities are known for their fast-paced energy.
Yeah, it's like they have their own rhythm.
Right. And one of our sources looked into whether we can actually measure that speed.
Really? How do you measure the speed of a city?
Well, one study by Yakov Zahavi found a surprising pattern.
What was that?
He found that no matter how big or small a city is, people tend to spend about an hour commuting each day.
Wait, so people in New York City are spending the same amount of time commuting
on average
as people in like a small town?
That's what the study found.
But how is that possible? Well, people in bigger cities, they tend to use faster modes of transportation.
Like subways and trains.
Exactly.
So they're covering more distance in the same amount of time.
It seems like we have a built-in limit.
A limit for
how much time we're willing to spend commuting.
Interesting. And there's this other concept called Marchetti's constant.
Oh, yeah, that one's cool too.
What's that about?
It says that the average distance people are willing to commute is about 30 minutes.
30 minutes, regardless of how they're traveling.
Yeah, whether it's by car or bike or train.
So even though technology has made travel faster,
right,
we still seem to stick to this 30-minute radius.
It's like a psychological or social limit.
Okay, so commute times might be relatively constant, but there's one aspect of city life that actually speeds up as cities grow. What's that?
Walking speed?
You're kidding me.
Nope, it's true.
I would have thought people would walk slower in big cities.
You'd think so with all the crowds.
Yeah.
But studies have shown that people actually walk faster in denser urban areas.
So it's like the city itself is setting the pace.
Exactly.
But this faster pace of life, it can be exhausting.
Oh, for sure.
It's like you're always on the go.
Right. And it makes you wonder about sustainability.
Sustainability.
Yeah. Can we keep up this pace forever?
Right. Can we create cities that are both exciting and sustainable?
That's the big question.
So where do we go from here?
Well, one of our sources suggests that we need to start thinking about cities from a more holistic perspective.
Holistic, so like looking at the big picture.
Exactly, considering all the different factors that make a city tick.
And one of the biggest challenges facing cities today
What's that?
Is energy.
Energy. Yeah, how do we power these massive urban centers sustainably?
Right, and We talked about solar energy earlier, but there are still challenges.
There are like storage and intermittency.
And the environmental impact of manufacturing solar panels.
Right. We need to make sure the solutions are actually sustainable.
So it's not just about finding a single solution.
No.
It's about exploring a whole range of options.
Exactly. A portfolio of renewable energy sources.
Like wind, geothermal, tidal power.
Yeah, finding the right mix for each location.
And it's not just about energy.
Right.
It's about transportation infrastructure, social dynamics.
It's about understanding the city as a whole.
And one of our sources emphasized the importance of using data and modeling.
Data and modeling.
Yeah, to study cities.
So like using technology to understand how cities work.
Exactly. And then we can use that information
Yeah.
to make smarter decisions about urban planning.
It's like having a virtual city.
A digital twin.
Yeah, where we can test out different scenarios.
Without messing up the real city.
Exactly.
But data alone isn't enough.
Right.
We also need to consider the human element.
Yeah, the social and psychological factor.
Like creating cities that are not just efficient,
Mm-hmm.
but also enjoyable and inspiring.
Cities that people want to live in.
And that brings us to a concept that's gaining traction in urban design.
What's that?
Biophilia.
Biophilia.
It's the idea that humans have this innate connection to nature.
So even though we live in these concrete jungles,
Yeah.
we still crave nature.
And it's not just about aesthetics.
Right.
There's actual evidence that exposure to nature can reduce stress,
Yeah.
improve air quality, even boost creativity. So it's like we need to bring nature back into our cities.
Exactly.
Parks, green roofs, more trees.
Yeah, integrating nature into the urban fabric.
It's about creating cities that nourish our bodies and our souls.
Beautifully said. I love that.
And this brings us to a concept that might sound a bit mind-boggling.
Oh boy, I love mind-boggling concepts.
Finite time singularities.
Finite time singularities. Okay, that sounds intense.
It does, right?
Like something out of science fiction?
Well, in a way it is.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Welcome back to Masterminds in Wisdom. We've been talking about all these scaling laws and how they shape the world around us. But there's one big question that keeps coming up.
Yeah, what's that?
Sustainability.
Ah, sustainability, yeah.
Can we actually build a future where our cities can thrive
Yeah.
without, like, totally destroying the planet?
Right, because we've seen how cities have become these dominant forces in human civilization.
Yeah, they're these hubs of innovation and creativity and progress.
Exactly, but all that growth comes at a cost.
Right. And we need to figure out
Yeah.
how to make it sustainable for the long haul.
For the future generations, yeah.
And one of the things that really stood out to me
Okay.
was this idea of our individual energy needs
Okay.
versus the collective energy appetite of an entire city.
Right, like our bodies haven't really changed that much.
Yeah, we still need the same basic amount of energy to survive.
But the way we live now
Yeah,
in these massive urban
it's
centers.
completely transformed our energy demands.
Yeah, one of our sources, the book scale, actually talks about this.
Okay.
It highlights how the shift from like a rural agrarian life
Right, like farming and living off the land.
to this urban industrialized society
Yeah.
has just skyrocketed our energy use.
And they give this crazy statistic.
What's that?
In developed countries like the U.S.,
Okay.
the average person uses something like 11,000 watts of power.
11,000 watts. That's insane.
That's over 100 times greater than our basic biological needs.
Wow. So it's not us, it's our lifestyle.
Yeah, it's all the stuff we use.
All the gadgets and appliances and transportation.
Exactly. And if everyone on the planet lived like that,
Oh, man.
it would be a disaster.
Yeah, our energy resources would be completely depleted.
That's why finding alternative energy sources
Yeah.
and reducing our consumption is so important.
And one of the most promising options out there
Yeah,
is solar energy.
right. The sun is this giant, inexhaustible power source.
Just beaming down on us for free.
But I know there are still some challenges with solar.
Yeah, for sure. Like intermittency.
Intermittency.
The sun doesn't shine all the time.
Right. So we need ways to store the energy.
Yeah, for when it's cloudy or at night.
Exactly. And then there's the whole issue of manufacturing solar panels.
Right. The environmental impact of production.
Yeah, we need to make sure the solutions are actually sustainable.
Yeah. Cradle to grave sustainability.
But it does seem like we're making progress,
Oh, yeah, for sure. Solar technology is getting better all the time.
and the cost is going down.
And more people are installing solar panels on their homes.
So maybe there's hope.
Yeah, I think so.
And speaking of history repeating itself,
Okay.
one of our sources dug up this fascinating article from the New York Times
From when?
from 1916.
Wow, that's over 100 years ago.
It's about this engineer named Frank Schumann,
Okay.
who was like a solar energy pioneer.
Okay.
He built this huge solar-powered irrigation system in Egypt.
Wow, in 1916.
Yeah, and he believed that solar energy could provide unlimited power.
Unlimited power.
Once we ran out of fossil fuels.
That's incredible. He was way ahead of his time.
Yeah, it's like these visionaries from the past.
Yeah.
They could see the challenges
Possibilities.
and opportunities of the future.
And here we are today facing those same challenges.
Right, and it's not just about solar energy.
Yeah.
We need to explore all kinds of renewable energy sources.
Wind, geothermal, tidal power.
Yeah, it's about finding the right mix for each situation.
It's like we need a diversified energy portfolio.
Exactly, and it's not just about energy either.
Right, it's about looking at the whole system.
The whole shebang.
Transportation, infrastructure, social dynamics.
Yeah, because cities are these incredibly complex systems.
Yeah, and that's why data and modeling are so important.
Right, we can use all this technology
Sensors, data analytics, AI,
to understand how cities work.
and make them more efficient and sustainable.
Yeah, it's like we can create a digital twin of the city,
A virtual model.
and then we can experiment
Yeah, test out new ideas.
without messing up the real city.
Exactly. It's like a giant urban simulator.
But we can't forget about the human element either.
Right. Cities are for people.
Yeah, we need to create cities that are not just efficient, but also enjoyable and inspiring.
Places where people want to live and thrive.
And one concept that's really interesting
What's that?
is biophilia.
Biophilia.
It's this idea that humans have this deep connection to nature.
So even though we live in these concrete jungles,
Yeah,
we still need nature.
we crave it.
Yeah, it's in our DNA.
And it's not just about having parks.
Right.
It's about integrating nature into the fabric of the city,
Green roofs, living walls, trees lining the streets.
bringing nature into our buildings.
Yeah, making cities more green and vibrant.
And studies have shown
Uh-huh.
that all this nature,
Yeah.
it can actually reduce stress,
Really?
improve air quality,
Wow.
even boost creativity.
So it's like a win-win.
Yeah, it's good for us and good for the planet.
I love it.
So it seems like we're coming full circle.
Until a certain...
We started talking about scaling laws in nature.
Yeah.
And now we're realizing
Right.
that we need to bring those same principles
The principles of nature.
back into our cities.
Right. It's about finding that balance
Yeah, between human ingenuity.
and the wisdom of the natural world.
This deep dive has been quite a journey.
Yeah, it really has.
It's given me a whole new perspective on cities and sustainability.
I'm glad to hear that.
And I hope our listeners feel the same way.
Me too.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration of scaling laws.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep those minds mastering and that wisdom flowing.